Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I am the ever tech challenged Brian, and that is Rob, and we are excited to have you guys here in the off season. We got a lot going on, actually, a lot of news this week, and we have a great guest. I can't wait to get into all of it. How are you, Rob?
I'm good. I just had to clean my glasses from where I just laughed so much because you couldn't play the intro music, and I sort of snorted into my hand and covered my glasses. But why do we put you in charge of the
I don't
sounds? I
know.
still
I
don't.
don't
I still
know.
don't work that
I
one
don't
out. So
know. The
yes,
best part is we're going to edit that out. No one will have any clue that there was dead air for the beginning of the recording.
yeah. I mean, the idea of getting you to play the sounds is so that I don't have to
Mm.
do editing anymore. And now I've got to go and edit out about like a minute of dead air where you couldn't find the button. Anyway, yes, you're right. We have we Should we start again? We have news and social. Quite a lot's happened this week.
Yes, 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 yes.
You found a few videos for the video vault.
Yes.
We have a great guest from the world of F1 threads.
Yes.
And then we will preview another great guest, which it's all a little bit of a blur because we've recorded both of them back to back. So this feels like we've only just finished doing it because we have. But we have to wait till next week for speaking to our next guest, which we'll preview later. So if it made any sense whatsoever, let's dive in at the beginning.
Let's
This is
do it. It's been a busy week.
It has, and this is kind of chronological, I think, from kind of as stuff was breaking, we were piling it into the notes. So, week started with Sainz committing to Williams. So, do you want to talk us through about as silly season was unfolding, the predictions that you put out there, Brian, just before
Hey.
this news broke?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think Signs to Williams is what caused me to go into
Oh,
all these notes. So I was in a car on a work trip, and I was driving, and I was on a conference call, and I hung up. And, you know, you're not supposed to look at your phone when you're driving, which is the correct thing to do. But I did catch a WhatsApp from Rob, and it says Signs to Williams. I said, oh, woo-hoo-hoo. So I called Rob again because you look at the phone, you can talk on it. And we chatted for a bit, and this got my conspiracy theory brain going. And I said, I got the rest. I got all the dominoes. They're going to cut Logan in the middle of the season, and then they're going to put Antonelli in there. And then he's going to go to Mercedes next year. This is his warm-up. And then Red Bull's obviously going to cut Checo. They were having those meetings at the season. And then they're going to put Danny Rick in that car because Christian Horner's still in control, and Helmet's got the egg on his face from the De Vries push from his last year. And then my brain's working. Liam Lawson's going to come in behind Danny Rick. And then I'm like, well, clearly Dewan's going to be the driver at Alpine next year. Valtteri stays at Sauber for a year. I'm like, I just solved the whole world hunger. And as I got back to my desk, as the trip ended, I started putting this together on a prediction slide from the dirty side. And literally as I'm doing this, William says, we're keeping Logan. I said, well, delete that out because I was wrong there. And so I had to redo some dominoes. And I published the thing. And then immediately upon publishing it, Red Bull says, we're keeping Checo for the rest of the year. And I said, delete that. And so I got a lot wrong very fast.
yeah, and I like to stand behind you. And when you'd first put the predictions out there, they were definitely dirty side predictions. And then the moment that it all came crashing down, they were definitely Brian predictions.
Yeah, it's fine. All good. I still
But
may have some of that right. I mean, we'll get into the rest of it. Let's keep going through the news.
yeah, so the little piece that came out off the back of Checo staying as of Saturday lunchtime when we're recording, I still haven't found an established journalistic whatever you want to call it, magazine, newspaper, website, whatever, that's actually run with this story. So this is all still kind of in the next tier down rumor mill, but it does feel like it has some kind of credibility, but literally no one is reporting on it either way, which is that Checo was about to be booted by Red Bull, and they'd already announced it to Max and his team. When all of a sudden Liberty came swooping in and said it would be really great if you kept Checo because revenue in Mexico is going to tank if we lose kind of the guy from Mexico on the team. So it'd be great if you could let him stay. And then suddenly the press conference comes out that Checo was staying. Now, well, there's a lot of things about that I could kind of believe and go, oh, okay. It also makes me angry that Liberty could get involved like that
Right.
and kind of force teams to do that. But on the same thing, like Nate, Chris Medland, BBC Sport, Sky Sports, any of these you go to, don't even mention that any of this even happened. They're not reporting on it either way. They're not shooting it down by saying, hey, this rumor was reported, but it's not true because, nor are they fanning the flames. It's just silence out there. So what do you make of this one, Brian?
I got to think it's fake. I mean, you have to think it's fake, and the reason that the people aren't shooting it down is because sometimes you just don't give credence to total fake rumors by even saying they're fake. So I mean, I would hate to see Liberty putting pressure on teams in terms of who their drivers are. That just reeks of ivory tower, don't understand, trying to play a game that you really shouldn't put your nose into. So I'm hoping it's fake. You?
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of think that the silence is just ignore it and just don't even give it the time of day. But something must have happened because, again, there is no smoke without fire. There were absolutely multiple reports that Checo was going to lose his seat after the break, and established journalists were reporting on that, and they were all. Nate Saunders tweeted, "Checo is being kept," much to the amazement of kind of recent rumblings that have come out of the paddock. So Nate even kind of acknowledged that they were caught by surprise. They thought Checo was going to get replaced. So something has happened,
Agreed.
and I think somebody's come up with a story to explain why it happened, and it might not be the right story.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense out of you for a change.
Oof.
We have a mid-season stat. Now, normally we do a deep dive, and I'll find time to do one of those on some extra stats, but just one that I liked. But because we're talking about the Mexican Grand Prix, maybe mariachi version of the SAP stat.
Wow.
SAP stat. One stat. Was it too loud?
I was going to say, you haven't volume adjusted that one, and I wasn't ready for that.
Well, there you go. SAP stat. It's a single one. And Karun brought this to us, Karun Chandok. So if you look at points from the last 8 races of the first half, or the first half of the season, the last 8 races, number 1 in the championship would still be Max, but he'd have 141 points. Right behind him at 126 points is Oscar. And right behind him at 123 points is Lewis. We've gone through 3 teams now. Right behind them is Lando, then Charles, bring in the 4th team. Carlos, George, again, obviously the DNF was costly. But they're all in the top 7, very close. And then there's a massive delta to 8 at Checo, 28 points compared to George's 79. So, and then right behind Checo is Fernando and Nico Hülkenberg. So anyway, my point being, I think this sets up, as we've all said, it's just extra fuel on the, oh my God, the second half of the season is going to be amazing fire.
Yeah. And like you say, Russell's DNF was costly because add 25 points to that and he's way up there.
Yep.
On that Russell DNF, Mercedes came out to explain the whole car weight issue. Trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin said the car's tyres, plank, and Russell himself all affected the final weight. They said Russell lost more weight than they were expecting. Plank had higher wear than Lewis's, and the tyre had more wear due to one stop. So it wasn't just 1.5 kilos due to a one stopper, and it was all tyre rubber related. It was a multitude of factors coming up. And then they said all of that added up to a weight reduction they did not foresee. So even if they had taken maybe corrective action on one of the things, they were caught out by the others. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So maybe it's not the big delta. Until Spanners put a tweet out, which made my head hurt for a little bit thinking about it. There was this big argument about, well, Russell was only in an advantage towards the end of his stint because that's when he would have become lighter than he should have been, and it was towards the end of his stint where he had the unfair advantage. At the beginning, his car weighed the same as Lewis's, so there was no advantage from the beginning. Spanners made the point, no, hang on. The car ended up being 1.5 kilos underweight. In order for it to have finished that race in a legal fashion, it would have had to have weighed 1.5 kilos more at the start of a race. So in actual fact, George was 1.5 under for the strategy that he chose, they ended up going to. For a 2-stop, he probably weighed exactly as he needed to. But for a 1-stop, he had an unfair advantage for the entire duration. So none of this, it was only the last 10 laps that really interfered. No, it would have been the whole race. I was like, that's actually very true.
Does the weight of the driver factor into the car? I thought there was like the set minimum, and then you put ballast
they weigh
in
both
to get to 80.
I think they weigh. I don't know. Don't they weigh both together? Isn't it the car drained of all fluids plus the driver has to be a minimum weight? I didn't know weight,
plus
right?
the driver. I thought there was a set 80 kilo, which they're raising to 82 next year, if I remember right. So it's getting close. I only need them to double it, then I can drive. Hey. Just kidding. But yeah, agreed. There was a lot to it. As you say, there were a lot of reasons why. It wasn't just one thing or the other. And one thing or the other kind of came into the news this week when all of a sudden Jonathan Wheatley is leaving Red Bull and becoming the team principal at Audi. And I say all of a sudden, one thing led to another because apparently Red Bull announced it first and Audi wasn't ready for them to
Yeah,
have announced
correct.
it. So like one thing led to another, and all of a sudden Red Bull's like, oh, by the way, Jonathan's leaving. And then Audi's like, did we prepare anything to welcome him on social media or a press release? And they're like, no.
I was almost waiting for Jonathan Whitley to come out and say it's come to my attention without my
The
acknowledgement
Piastri.
that I'm joining Audi. But yeah, so Horner announced where he was going before Audi had done anything, and that I mean it could have been a slip of the tongue. The internet reacted the way it does every time Horner does anything and said, "Oh, that's naughty. He shouldn't have done that. He knows the protocol. You don't go announcing other teams." They should have just said Wheatley was leaving and left it at that. And again, whatever. Whether Horner had some malicious intent or whether he just loose lip sync ships, as they say.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But yes, so Wheatley's going to be the team principal at Audi. So basically, everyone's abandoning ship at Red Bull at the moment. If you start looking at this,
Yeah.
New is gone, Wheatley's gone. Stories around Max all the time. So stories around Horner and his power base. I mean, that doesn't seem a team united at the moment. Let's put it that way.
But I mean, to be frank, Jonathan Wheatley's going to Audi, where they just shed the whole leadership, brought in Mattia a week and a half ago. I mean, I'm not exactly going to call Audi a bastion of stability either. So it's kind of an interesting grid if you look at it. We know Alpine appears to be being set up to be sold. They're on their 5th team principal in 5 years. I mean, Haas, yeah, I would just say Williams and Carlos's decision to go there looks better and better as you look at the stability of the teams and the fact that James Vowles is building for the long term, and they do seem to be on the rise. And if I'm Carlos, I'm feeling good.
I think so. I think he'd be looking at the car and hoping he was feeling a little bit better with the performance. But yes, all the building blocks seem to be in place for that team to hopefully do a McLaren and return to the form of yesteryear.
But speaking of stability, there is another
Yes.
team, as you mentioned, McLaren, who has returned, and they extended the contract of Andrea Stella, the team principal there, because they do have 2 drivers. Now Oscar in his 2nd year. They have Zach, the CEO, Zach Brown, who's been there a bit, and Andrea Stella, who clearly is doing a good job getting the team going in the right direction and all the different units. And yes, they've lost a couple people over the last couple years, but really from a leadership perspective, it's been fairly stable. And I think you see the results, and they want to keep it going.
Question for you on McLaren.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a sorry, I'll start differently. I think it's a good setup, and I'd like to know if you do as well, which is Stella doesn't really get much of the limelight. He's the team principal, but Zach Brown covers all of the DTS media. He's the face. If anyone is dialing in on the pit wall to Sky Sports News during the race, it's Zach mainly. I think that really works because I think Zach can almost run block and tackle and kind of take all of that limelight away and just leave Andreas to just get on with running the team. He doesn't have to worry about. He does some social media and some stuff on race day, but I think it's a model that I think other teams. Maybe it's the character of the team principal, but I really like the way McLaren have got themselves organised there.
Well, I do too. And Paul has actually told us before that some team principals just aren't, extroverts or limelight seekers. They're a little more quiet. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to your point, there are media duties. There are other things that are required, and that you can shine the light in a different direction and kind of get the narrative you want if you go out and do that. And if your CEO, in this case Zach, has limited day-to-day responsibilities at a racetrack and can go out and do the Drive to Survive, do the interviews, be on the pit wall radio, do all the media, and Andrea Stella can basically run the team, as opposed to also having to do those things. I think you're probably right. I think there's something to that. And I guess we'll see. There's a couple other teams that have a similar setup, but usually not the CEO's not as, engaging as Zach is. So I don't know. There's something to that. That's for sure.
And then one last thing to close out the news that I found this morning. Scrolling through the interweb, Formula God said this is a crazy statistic. At the Belgian Grand Prix last week, every single driver who finished in the top 10 has won a Formula One race, and this is the first time it's ever happened in the entirety of F1.
Wow.
Now, I haven't fact-checked that claim, but I have, it's a decent account, so I'm going to believe them. So we had Hamilton, Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, Perez, Alonso, Ocon, and Ricciardo were the top 10.
Wow.
Every single one of them is a race winner.
Yeah.
And if George hadn't been disqualified, it would have been the top 11 would have had it.
And I'm thinking 3 of them are single winners. Ocon, Hungary.
Yeah.
Piastri just won the other day. And then Norris. Has Miami plus anything else? Just Miami, right? Why am I drawing a blank so hard at the end of this first half here?
Don't know. Yes, now I'm thinking.
Someone will correct
I
us.
want to say that Norris has won too, but
Feels like it, but I don't think
Of
so.
course he did. He won Hungary. The team. The team. No, Piastri won that. No.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Yes. Now that I came in with a great stat, and now you confuse me, and now I don't even know which way's up.
I'm very sorry. But with that, let's open the video vault because we nail it here at the dirty side every time.
Every time. We started with a problem with the sounds, and we've just snowballed from there. This is a disaster.
Please don't leave that minute of dead air because people will just hang up. All right, the video vault. Three items to highlight this week. And I'm going to start with one that had so much promise, so much opportunity. Lewis Hamilton departing in private jet after winning the F1 Belgian Grand Prix 2024 on the LDV spotting channel. Yeah, I thought I'd found gold. And I'm like, I'm going to report to all the dirty siders. I'm going to be so proud of myself. It's terrible. Don't watch it. If it comes across your feed, don't do it. Don't do it. He comes in a helicopter, walks out into the building, walks back out into a plane. That's it. And
That's it.
It's 5 minutes of people just standing around and walk. Don't do it. But there were two that I did enjoy. Carlos Sainz's fluffy pancake recipe on the Ferrari channel, 10 minutes. As I have said many times, and maybe the Ferrari admins are starting to listen, we don't want the 2-minute versions of these things that have 40 seconds of intro and outro. Give us a little bit of content. And they did. This is great. Did you see this one, Rob?
No, I haven't watched either of these two yet.
So Carlos makes pancakes, and he says, I have this famous recipe I'm going to use to show you guys how to make pancakes. And then he has to get his phone to find the recipe on TikTok so he can. So maybe it's not a family passed down generational recipe. However, it was awesome. It was great. It was a lot of fun watching it. He was having fun making the pancakes and even said, I had to do this before I left the team. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And then the last one is a Formula One channel special, the Face Mash Challenge, Grill the Grid 2024, Episode 1, 14 minutes. I really enjoyed this too. Did you see this one? This was a mainstreamer.
No, I think I've seen excerpts of this floating around different reels where people have put this is the different faces all kind of
three
together,
drivers'
right?
faces put together, and you got to figure out who's what and whatever.
I will search this one out. This does look good because the little snippets I've seen in the 1 minute formats here and there does look quite good.
It was enjoyable. But with that, it is time to close the video vault. I was actually traveling this week for work, as I referenced the call at the beginning on Monday. I was gone for a good portion of the week and then came back to a lot of different things going on. I didn't think I'd have any videos. And when I found that Lewis Hamilton departing in private jet, I thought it was going to be like he finds out on the jet he won, oh, I'm the winner. I thought it was going to be all this stuff. And I thought it would be my big, look at me, no videos to some gold videos. And then...
Okay, well... Yeah. While the Olympics are dominating, so that's not even getting your bronze medal, right? The other two are definitely gold and silver. This one is what, that fell over on the first hurdle?
It's tinfoil medal.
Okay, so we have a guest this week. The community over at Threads has been growing for a while now. We've been running the Dirty Side account there. I'm going to say I mainly have been because Brian's our Twitter correspondent. I've taken Threads, and it was a bit of a slow burn. And then I kind of have, maybe out of nowhere over the last kind of 9 months or so, it's just kind of lit up. And we have a guest from the world of F1 Threads, and I'm going to let myself introduce our guest now.
Box.
Okay, regular listeners will know that Brian has the keys to the castle when it comes to running our Twitter account. And I took up a while ago the Threads account, which was the small, lowly account that was living in Twitter's shadow. But over the past probably 6 months, F1 Threads has massively taken off, met some fantastic people over there. And one of those people we're going to welcome to the dirty side of the track today, the chief welcomer of F1 Threads. Nice to meet you, Helz.
Hi, yes, thanks for that, Monica.
How did, by the way, just or we got the official welcome from you, but when did that start happening and how did it happen?
I don't know. It was sometime in January. I did it for someone. I can't even remember who the first person was now. And then I did it for a couple of other people as well, just because we had a lot of new people and they kept sort of finding me. And it just sort of took off. And then my other followers were tagging me whenever there was a new person saying, "Oh, have you had the welcome yet? Have you met Helz?" And I'm like, okay, this is my new job now. So then I had to copy and paste it, because I was just writing it, and I had to copy and paste it. And then, but then Threads thought I was a bot. So I've now got 3 versions that I alternate so that I don't get my account blocked.
Oh, man. Well, there are a few other things I want to dive into around Threads and other things. But first we need to get down to important business of running the 100 seconds of DRS. So I need to get the counter sorted. Brian, you're going to be asking the questions, right?
Yes, I'm going to do my best. Helz, I apologize in advance.
And I'm going to run the timer. So, Helz, 100 seconds of DRS in 3, 2, 1, begin.
Best F1 driver on the grid currently.
Lewis Hamilton.
Wow. Favorite F1 track?
Silverstone.
What's the first poster you ever had on your bedroom wall?
Oh. Bruce Willis. God.
What's your favorite cheese?
Wensleydale.
Is it pronounced GIF or GIF? And this one's very important.
It's pronounced GIF, but correctly it should be GIF.
Yes, all accurate. They nailed it. Cats or dogs?
Both.
If you could add a James Bond type gadget to an F1 car, what would it be?
Oh. Laser beams.
I like that. Favorite non-motorsport sport?
None.
Just
Fair
F1.
enough.
And then of the liveries on this year's cars, what's the best livery in 2024?
McLaren.
Do you have any lucky superstitions?
No, not really. I will always wear McLaren merch for an F1 race, but not my Lando Las Vegas t-shirt because of the bad crash he had last year.
Oh, okay. What's your least favorite errand to run or chore to do?
The shopping. Food shopping.
And on that downer, that is the end of the 100 seconds.
I know this won't count in the 100 seconds, Helz, but I got one more that I had to get to. Tires, interesting or not?
Very interesting.
Yes!
Oh, man.
Nailed it.
Oh, sorry. Something's coming up. I'm going to have to hang up now. No.
Perfect. See you later, Rob. Agreed on the GIF thing. Can we just totally agree? I call it a GIF, and the person, because it's spelled graphics interchange format, GIF, and graphics is a hard G, GIF. But I recognize the founder has said after the fact it's GIF, but come on.
No, he's wrong.
Yeah, it's GIF.
I think he's just trolling everyone.
I think so. It's actually how when I first meet somebody, it's one of the questions. I'm like, GIF or GIF? And then to your point, when we were joking before we started recording, I'll end the conversation. Like, you're wrong. It's not GIF. It's not peanut butter.
No, you're not worthy of my time now.
So tires, I'm sorry, Rob, one more else. So tires, interesting. I totally agree. And I guess I'm curious, like, what is interesting for you? Is it the strategy that they beget? Is it just the watching the degradation? Is it seeing who comes out on what? Like, for me, it's almost all the above, but I was just curious if there's one thing that really...
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. I really like a good strategic race. I know a lot of people don't, and they want overtaking all the time and not to have to rely on pits, but I really like trying to work out strategy and trying to analyze it. So degradation comes into that, I guess, and I like to see who can be a tire whisperer. Appropriate. I like to see who can manage their tires the best, and drivers learn how to manage their tires better as they progress through F1 as well.
You see, I get the bad rap for saying that I don't like tires, and I do if it was for all of those above reasons that Brian kind of quoted. What I don't like about tyres is where they can I hate boring one stoppers where the tires are so durable they just never fall off a cliff, and there's almost no
Yeah,
difference between the hard and the mediums, and people are just stopping because they have to run two compounds. It's like
yeah,
just
yeah.
I don't want to go back to the dangerous days of blowouts because the tires are so thin they just disintegrate. But
No,
I'd love, like I think it was Lewis was saying, kind of let's go for mandatory two stops everywhere, even if the
yeah.
tires can last.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. I know my son actually hates two-stop races because he gets lost partway through. But yeah, two stops every time. I hate one-stop races. They're just boring. If there's not enough delta between tires, then yeah, what's the point?
I did get caught in the two-stop recording of Hoot Stopped and Not Madness at the last race. I thought Valtteri was on for a points finish, and then he went into the pits with like 10 laps left. And Pit Lane Paul last week even referenced the late pit stop and why they did it. I don't know why they did it. Had they not gone, I haven't gone back to figure out if they'd only done one compound so far at the last stop, but I got caught up in the madness. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The idea that, who stopped, who hasn't, when are they using different compounds when they come out?
Yeah.
Will they be faster, slower? What'll happen towards the end? I love that. It's so awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even realise in the last race that Alonso also only one stopped.
Yeah.
I lost that completely because we were also fixated on George.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen a lot of Aston Martin in the witness protection program on TV in the last couple races where you're not even sure Lance and Alonso are racing, but that's okay.
Yeah,
so winding back the clock a little bit and without trying to age the three of us at all, when did F1 first come onto your radar then? What's the kind of the origin story of Helz and F1?
I very, very much grew up with it. I say I started taking an interest around the age of 6, which would be 1980. But I don't know a time when Sundays weren't about roast dinners and F1. That was what I grew up with. My dad was an avid fan, an avid Senna fan, so that was the first sort of name that I knew. Red and white cars, really easy to spot on track, and just, I grew up watching Senna. He was my first real driver to watch, and of course the McLaren. So, and then from there, I don't know, it just never left me. Actually, my dad doesn't even watch anymore.
Wow.
Because he now boring. Yep, I know. I don't know what happened there. It's embarrassing, quite frankly. Whereas my interest kind of grew and grew as his waned off. So but all more motorsport. I grew up watching, MotoGP, superbikes. We used to go to motocross every weekend as well. So motorsport is kind of in my blood.
And since you've had this, lifelong F1 passion, what have been some of the peaks in terms of favorite drivers or teams? You talk about starting with Senna, but I'm kind of curious because there have been some GOATs since then, obviously, and now, and I don't know if you have has it been McLaren more than not, and has that steered you? I'm just kind of curious.
It's been McLaren more than not, yeah. But they, Vettel famously said everyone's a Ferrari fan, and he wasn't wrong. I very much worshipped Schumacher. And loved him, Mick Hakkinen as well. Never been that keen on British drivers, which always takes people by surprise, but I've never been patriotic about my sports.
Not even Mansell's lovely moustache. I mean, come on.
No. I've always found, controversially, British drivers to be really whingy. and they just moan all the time.
Well, on one, I can't even remember what episode it was. I think I almost got asked to give my British passport back because I put forward the argument as to why Schumacher actually wasn't in the wrong with the Hill-Schumacher collision. And I made a good case for it. I said, if you change those two drivers into being Verstappen versus Lewis, and Lewis is in Schumacher's car and Verstappen is in Hill's, you'll say that Verstappen dive-bombed Lewis down the inside and went too aggressive. But we swapped those out and put a British driver in. Everybody gets too patriotic and says, no, it was all Schumacher. But I know it was a bit of both. But
I'd like to extend Helz's little analogy there that they have, because it's perfect. I'd say British F1 podcast co-hosts also whinge far too much, if I may be so bold.
You are outnumbered here.
I know. I always am. That's all
dodgy ground there, dodgy ground. But yeah, I mean, even Lewis in his early years used to annoy the hell out of me because he just moans all the time. And it's only with maturity in the last couple of years that he seems to have settled down and stopped. He's got things to actually moan about now, but he seems to have matured in the way he moans about them.
Agreed.
He doesn't throw his toys out the pram quite so much as he used to.
What annoys me is he must get trained for this, but the necessary moaning on the radio to try and bring things to the attention of the race stewards. Yeah. Like they're all watching, they're going to see. We don't need to hear, "Hey, he cut me up, man." Like we know, we saw it as well. There are cameras everywhere.
They can't help it.
Sorry,
no, I've got one last
sounds. Okay, go ahead.
Oh no! If you're going to do sounds, you can do the sounds, Brian.
Well, for Helz, this is special. So I loved when Toto had to intervene about how bad the car was.
Lewis, the car is bad, we know. Please drive it.
Just please drive it. Was that Austria last year, I want to say? I could be getting that wrong.
It's like, just do your job.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Rob.
I
didn't mean to.
No, I was going to go back to when you said idolizing Schumacher. Then I will need to dig out the episode when Pit Lane Paul first came on. It might have been his first time on, Brian, when he was telling all the stories about working with Schumacher when he came over to Mercedes. And the stupid little games they used to play in the pits, and just it was amazing to hear kind of from the inside story, not what we all think of Michael Schumacher, but what it was like to actually be in there and work with him. It was amazing. It was apparently he used to kind of have pictures of all the team and kind of learn some facts about all of them, like really, not be this aloof driver that, hey, I'm Michael Schumacher and you should all worship me. He really tried to get in as part of the team and get to know everybody.
Exactly. He was never like that, and he liked to play little pranks and, a real family man, and the team was his family as well. And yeah, I knew that about him. He wasn't the facade that he put up.
So you're McLaren through and through, but I got to ask this because some McLaren fans the and Coulthard era was a little bit of a boring era for personalities, really. So is that when you stayed over on the Schumacher side of the fence and kind of kept looking over?
A little bit more, yeah. You want a bit more. I mean, I love Mick Hackney. I loved his racecraft, but you go where the excitement is, don't you? They weren't the most scintillating personalities, were they? And we all like a bit of controversy, let's be honest. And I did it.
That is very true. So if we kind of take one huge kind of step forward then to where we find ourselves now, you have got to be absolutely thrilled with what McLaren have done over the last, second half of last year and all of this year, right? Did you even see that coming at all? Or did you think this was going to take another year, 18 months of development?
Yeah, I believed what Zach Brown said, that we weren't there yet. We had at least another year. It's all nice to go slow, and then this year it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, I can't quite keep up. And it's quite a lot to get my head around. I'm not used to McLaren being good. And it's made race weekends so much more nervy now. It's like when they were bottom half, even if they were just in the points, but in the lower half of the points, that was fine. That was steady. I could deal with that. But now we're fighting for wins all the time. And it's just, and you almost expect them to be on the podium because it's been 10 in a row this year. And it's just like, it's fought. And I'd have no nails left, every week.
Well, it is also, for the day we're recording this, it's, I believe, the 2-year anniversary to the day of Oscar's tweet at Alpine that he had not signed any agreement. And now look where we are 2 years later with two, I think, amazing young drivers who seem to be dueling each other. But I do have a very, very seriously, very important question. Rob seems to disagree with me on this, and we haven't done a deep dive on it, but we did hit it last week. Lando's had some first lap problems in the last handful of races, maybe even 10.
Yeah.
And Rob seems to, at least when we spoke about it, Rob, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you seem to minimize it a bit and say it was bad luck. I thought I attributed more of it to Lando. It's not all bad luck. And I went back and actually watched lap 1 at Spa. He didn't get pushed off that far. He went off. I mean, like, it's not like someone was there. I don't think. So Helz, explain to Rob and I what's actually going on with Lando in the beginning of races.
Because I know Lando that well. There has been some bad luck. But yeah, I did listen to last week's episode, and sorry, Rob, Lando has got a problem with his starts and his first lap.
I'm not cheering for Lando having a problem. I love Lando. I'm not cheering for him having a problem with his starts. I just like the fact that someone else agreed Rob's wrong.
I mean, you know how I don't like to give up on a point, but what I actually said, Brian, was that the ones where he's got away, like a dog, right? It's all on him. That has to be. He's got to sort out where he seems to start the race in third gear and just can't get away off the line. All I said was last weekend's I didn't think was another example of that. He actually had a good start and then got forced out wide. So I don't think I stand by last weekend's wasn't a bad start from him, like we've seen where he just kind of forgets to accelerate.
Yeah. He did have a problem the race before, though. There was something wrong with engaging second gear. It didn't take off properly, and that wasn't on him. That was an actual issue in the car. So that one was a bad luck thing. But yeah, I feel happier when he doesn't start on pole. Let's put it that way.
I actually think,
less chance of those gremlins or whatever bad luck happening.
I think me and Brian talked about this a couple of episodes ago. Like, your take on it is that because McLaren seem to be way ahead of where they planned to be, but it's almost caught them by surprise, that it almost feels like some of the racecraft or the finesse of being at the front and being expected to lead a race, they haven't fully got caught up with. It's like they seem to always not copy other people's strategies, but let's say react. They were very good at reacting to what was going on around them. So if Red Bull did this, Mercedes did that, they could react. Now they're at the front and they're having to lead. I just think they're kind of going, what do we do?
Yeah, because they haven't got experience of doing it, and they weren't supposed to have experience of doing it yet. They were supposed to get there gradually. So now they're just, I mean, they'll get there, they'll learn. It's come really rapidly. The drivers, neither Oscar nor Lando, have got, experience of doing that in F1. And it's a completely different thing to be hunted rather than the hunter. And I think Lando especially is better at being the hunter than being hunted. But, it'll come with time. And I think everyone having a go at Lando and McLaren all the time for their strategies and Lando for his starts isn't really helpful or fair, really. They are learning. They have got to the top a lot quicker than they planned. And if there's one thing that team is good at, it's learning from their mistakes. They admit them and they learn from them, and then they move on.
Yeah, I would like to agree with Helz, and I'd like to retract my comments about how badly Lando's done at the beginning, but I will remain the comments that I was right and Rob was wrong. So somehow so we're recording this obviously at the summer break, and I guess you talk about being the hunter as opposed to the hunted, and I really like the analogy, because when we look at the rest of the season, Max built up an early lead and Red Bull built up an early lead, but we have definitely seen a shift over the last 8 or so, 10 races in terms of team points accumulated, people on the podium, and kind of the way things are shaken out. Yeah. So the first question, Red Bull, Constructors' Championship in 2024 or not?
Oh, it's not as simple as yes or no.
That's true, it isn't, and that is a hard one.
My heart says no, obviously. I think it's going to be extremely tight, and I think it'll come down to the last race, genuinely. A lot of it depends on Checo, let's be honest.
Yeah.
McLaren have got 2 drivers scoring good points every single race. Red Bull have got Max. Whether Checo can do his usual turnaround that he does in the second part of the season, I don't know, because he's worse this year than he was last year.
Well, true. And the thing, I guess, that for the McLaren fans out there, the little fly in the ointment is those pesky Mercedes guys getting their act back together again. Because if they hadn't over the last couple of races and McLaren had taken those where George and Lewis had won, I mean, it would be almost neck and neck going into the summer break. Yeah. But the resurgence of Mercedes has hasn't dampened McLaren's chase of Red Bull, but it's definitely got in the way of it. I almost feel like Max is going to win the world title. Well, A, because he's a great driver, but also there hasn't been one consistent person being the winner when it isn't Max.
Yeah, exactly. It's been split between, how many winners have we had? 7?
7.
Yeah. All the top 4 teams except Checo.
Yeah. Which is, unprecedented, really, especially for the last few years. I don't know. Mercedes are not helping McLaren at this point. But it's good to see Mercedes finally clicking. It's setting us up very nicely for certainly next season. I think 2025 is going to be ridiculously close. Really exciting, especially as I think there'll be some driver changes in certain teams. So that could make life a bit more interesting as well. I don't know if McLaren will do it or not this year. My heart absolutely says yes, and they can. And I think they can, but I just think it's going to be really, really tight, and a lot of it's going to depend on updates and Checo's performance.
So do you think McLaren, since they're the hunter for Abu Dhabi, could bring in Michael Massey to help with the race situation and we could get one of these?
It was so not right.
I don't know why we've played 2 sounds with Helz and they're both Toto. This makes no sense.
I don't know either.
I apologize. No. I apologize.
I don't know what that says about me.
Apparently McLaren have a lot of Mercedes analogies. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, it was McLaren Mercedes, so maybe you're harking to that's in your subconscious. McLaren don't need that sort of thing to help them win a world championship.
And before all the Max
they just need team orders.
Fans, yeah, exactly. Before the Max fans come after me, I need to apologize.
Sorry, I'm not even going to go near the team orders thing because that stirred up way too much. Let's swerve that one. Okay, last couple of things then before we move on to getting you to take a run at the quiz and see if you can topple Terry F1 Coffee Corner at the top of his leaderboard at the moment. You never know. You never know. No one thought McLaren were going to be here, so come on. So obviously, kind of talked about that. Let's look at the end of the grid. Are we going to see Sauber score a point this year?
Boy.
Oh God, no. I don't want to say that, and
no,
I don't think Joe is going to. Or realistically, I think Valtteri could, but it's going to take some unusual circumstances. I think, if I'm honest,
yeah.
And I really hate to say that, it's awful, but realistically, I just can't see where they can score.
No, it's soul destroying to see Valtteri in a car that just can't deliver. I would just love, and I know this, and you were on about Hart speaking overhead earlier, I would absolutely be thrilled if we got the news breaking that Valtteri is taking this seat next to George next year, where they give Kimi a little bit longer to get ready, and he's on a 1-year contract, and we see Valtteri back in a Mercedes. It's not going to happen, but
no, it's not going to happen. And does he really want the trauma of that again? Because he's a different person since he left Mercedes.
Do you think they'd let him keep the mustache and mullet?
No, Toto's never going to let him do that. There'll be no more TikToks that are, hilarious, and no more Uber adverts.
I was about to say the world's greatest Uber advert in Australia.
Yeah, I just don't think he'd go back there ever, and I think Kimi will be in that seat anyway.
So I'm getting really worried about, do Sauber just sign him up for one more year before it becomes Audi now that Sainz isn't going there next year? I'm just starting to look at the number of seats left and thinking, is Valtteri on the grid next year? And even if he's not, we're going to play the clip every single time. But he deserves a drive, I think.
I think it's tricky. There's a lot of new young talent, and with Nico already being signed for Audi, you've got the experienced driver. So are they going to want a young one as well? Or to develop the team, will they go for two experienced drivers? I don't know. I would like to see Valtteri there. I really would. But I don't know. That's 2026. We've got a whole nother, year and a half before that.
Yeah, true. Okay, I think then it's about that time to fire up the quiz. It's definitely not a complete rip-off of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
No.
But bizarrely, there are 15 questions, multi-choice, and you do get 3 lifelines in an extraordinary coincidence. So I'll just quickly take you through the lifelines that you have, right? So you've got 15 questions. It's 3 blocks of 5. 5 really easy, 5 kind of middling, 5 get harder. At any point, you can play these 3 lifelines. You've got box, which is not changing tires. You change the question. So if I read the question out to you and you're like, I've got no clue, you can play box and swap it out for another question. Okay. You can do a 2-stop strategy, which obviously we've now learned that you love, which is that you hear the question, and before you give us an answer, you can say, I want to do a 2-stop strategy, which means you get to give me 2 answers, 2 bites of the cherry.
Okay.
And then for any question apart from the last question, if you hear it and you're like, no chance, you can activate your DRS and skip the question altogether.
Okay.
And
right?
It's a good thing I had the sounds up, because we actually have Andy made us music for this. I forgot about
quiz
that.
Music. Yeah, the quiz music.
A little bit. So here
we haven't, have we?
We have not. We'll launch the quiz music before I turn it over to Rob to be our quiz master. All right. On to you, Robert Vale.
Okay, here we go. And there may be a slight chance I may have manipulated the first question ready for you. Okay, question number 1. And by the way, when this goes out on the episode, there'll be real tense music playing, but we haven't given that. Cool. We haven't given the file to Brian yet for him to be able to play it, so you just have to pretend you can hear music. Right, okay. Sure. Question number 1. McLaren's colour on their race car is known as A, orange, B, papaya, C, mango, D, lemon.
B, papaya.
Way! Off we go. We're up and away. Okay, question number 2. Crofty famously shouts what at the beginning of each race? It's lights out and cars go vroom. Cars go vroom. The race can start. Away we go. It's gone dark. Where did all the lights go?
Away we go.
Oh, look at this. Rocking through it. Okay, question number 3. For the team BAR, what did BAR actually stand for? A, British American Racing, B, Burgers and Rice, C, Beyonce and Rihanna, D, British and Rapid.
I wish it was all the other answers, to be honest, but A, British American Racing.
Correct. Okay, question number 4. The time when drivers start moving seats is referred to as what? A, madness moments, B, tense times, D, dizzy days, C, silly season.
Silly season.
Look at this. See, I told you the first 5 were gimmies, and you are going to get this one. Okay, question 5. A black and white flag means A, pirates ahead, B, all colour displays are broken, C, warning for unsportsmanlike behaviour, D, resume racing.
Unsportsmanlike behaviour.
Yes. Excellent. Right, there we go. Okay.
Who comes up with these alternative answers? Because I like them. They're good.
That's me.
Robert.
No, they're really good, Rob. I like them.
Okay, now we start getting a little bit more serious. Okay, only 3 current drivers feature in the top 10 most ever race wins. Lewis and Max are way clear, but what's the 3rd current driver that's in that top 10? A, Valtteri, B, Alonso, C, Checo, D, Charles Leclerc.
Alonso?
Correct. Look at that. Not even using a lifeline. Right. We always throw one in We always throw one in that requires you to have had some kind of knowledge of the podcast. So this one has tripped people up in the past who come on claiming to have listened and blatantly never have. Here we go. So Rob just went to see which band live in concert? A, Guns N' Roses, B, Foo Fighters, C, Coldplay, D, NSYNC.
Foo Fighters.
Yes.
Well done, Helz.
Phew.
Okay, question number 8. Carlos Sainz announced he will drive for who next season? A, Williams, B, Audi, C, Red Bull, D, Alpine.
Williams. And I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. I've made these too easy. I think Terry's going to be getting a little bit upset here. Okay, question number 9. When Vettel retired from F1, was he driving for A, Alpine, B, Red Bull, C, Ferrari, D, Aston Martin?
Aston Martin.
Okay, this is the 10th question now. And you haven't used a single lifeline yet. I'm starting to think I've got to make these harder. Spa used to be much longer in its original format, but how long was it to the nearest answer here? A, 5 miles, B, 7 miles, D, 9 miles. C, 9 miles, D, 11 miles. So 5, 7, 9, or 11 miles long. And you have all 3 lifelines, remember?
Yeah. Oh, I know what I want to say, but I'm too scared to say it.
So you can you could box to swap it, you could 2-stop strategy to give me 2 bites at the cherry, or you could DRS and skip it altogether.
2-stop strategy.
Okay, right. What's your first attempt going to be?
7.
Oh, it's a good job you played it, because that's wrong. So what's your second bite at the cherry here? 5, 9, or 11, if is what you got left.
Oh my god. This is where it all falls down now, isn't it? Oh. 9.
Correct. Well, it's a good job you played that. So that lifeline has gone now. Okay.
Okay.
Now this one is a much older episode, but being the historian of F1 that you are, then maybe you'll be okay with this one. So Matt Bishop came on the pod and told us a great story about the biggest story that he ever broke as a journalist that really put him on the map as being an F1 journalist. What story did he break? A, McLaren and their extra brake pedal. B, Crashgate. C, the Red Bull cost cap breach. Or D, Schumacher joining Ferrari.
Whoa.
See, they do get harder.
This
They
is
do,
now
don't
in the
they?
hard section, just to be clear. We're in the
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Do you want the options again?
No, that's fine, because I think I know what I want to say. And again, I'm thinking, what question is this?
11.
11. Okay, so that's fine. I'm just going to go for it. Crashgate. No. Oh no.
Was
Go on,
McLaren? It was McLaren's extra brake pedal.
Oh,
They
really?
noticed. They noticed some photos. Him and the photographer that he was working with noticed that the rear brake? Whichever way, the brakes were lighting up weird in these pictures of corners, and it's like, how the heck
Yeah.
are they doing that, going around corners? And they managed to sneak in and get a camera down the cockpit of I think Hakkinen's car and discovered their special extra brake pedal they had, so that they could just brake just the inside wheels or just the rear wheels, whichever it was. That's a little fancy trick to be able to take more speed into corners.
He also told us how he almost got Seb to McLaren, if I remember that right as well.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he was telling us. He gave us a little scoop that he said hadn't been reported on. Oh, I thought you'd be up between those first two, because the Red Bull and the Schumacher were my kind of little red herrings that I put in there. But that's question 11. That puts you ahead of. Actually, no, 11 you failed on, so you got 10 right.
Yeah.
So you're tied with Adam from Fantasy HQ. So I mean, come on, it's only a couple behind Terry. He's going to take some catching, I think.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, in Terry we trust.
If you'd have boxed, by the way, and swapped the question out,
Go
I
on.
won't give the actual answer, because we're going to use it.
But you're going to give the question for others to prepare?
But it doesn't matter, because Rob won't have heard this by the time we record. We're recording with Fantasy Hub tomorrow, so he won't even have heard this. So if he gets this far, there was going to be a question of, based on the sum total of their driver numbers, which team has currently got the highest total? So if you take the driver numbers and add them together this season, who's got the highest total? Red Bull, Sauber, Mercedes, or Ferrari? So you got to know your you got to know your driver numbers and add those together.
Ferrari and who was the other one? Red Bull, Sauber, Ferrari.
Red Bull, Sauber, Mercedes, and Ferrari.
I'm really useless at math. 71. So Ferrari's 71.
Yes.
Ferrari is 71. Red Bull is 12. I threw that one in there as a stupid one because they've got 1 and 11 as their numbers.
Not technically 12 because Max is 33, isn't he?
Well, he's carrying the one.
Either way, it's not enough.
Way, so you need to be careful with those answers.
Still doesn't make him the top one, irrespective.
No, fair enough. Oh God, what's George's number? I've completely forgotten.
Do you know it, Brian?
63 is George.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, so it's going to be Mercedes, isn't it?
It is only just though. So Mercedes are 44 and 63, and Sauber are 77 and 24. So it's 107 to 101. So yeah.
I was actually secretly rooting that Valtteri went to Williams because he's 77 and Alex is 23, and there has to be some kind of good luck for an even 100 between the teams. I also, when I microwave my frozen pretzels in the morning before an F1 race, I go 44 seconds because that's a Lewis Hamilton. And when all my tire pressures were 44, I sent Rob a picture of it, and he said, "So what?" I go, "Come on, these are 444s," and he didn't care. I live too much for the numbers, so that's one I would have actually done all right on.
Yeah, a little
but
bit,
only that one. Only that one.
I spot the number 4 everywhere I go. It's a lucky day when there's lots of number 4s.
There goes Lando.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, Lewis is a double Lando. I just anyway.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be 8? You're just saying 2 Landos. Okay. The mathematician in me is explaining what doubling means to myself.
Oh my
we can move on. Helz, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It's going to add a strange, different dynamic now to the interactions on Threads. So which will be cool.
It is. There you guys.
And then I don't want to make you feel bad, Brian, but basically Threads is where it's at, and Twitter is dying. So,
I got to say this. In all seriousness, I don't get on social media nearly enough, and that's why our Twitter account has gone a little bit cold. But I have popped onto Threads and seen the interactions y'all are having, and I'm like, oh, this sounds so great. I should be here and just totally abandon Twitter. But, yeah.
No, you really should.
Really should. I know. You're totally right. Totally right.
We don't do toxic. We do serious conversations, and we do utterly unhinged conversations as well.
Well, very true. I'm in for the unhinged, so sign me up, Helz.
It's like the motto of Threads is just to be unhinged.
I mean, I didn't know that. Sounds like my kind of place.
Thank you again
for
ever so much.
Yeah. No,
thank you. Thank you not just for coming on. Do also need to say thank you for being such a big champion of us on Threads, because you've absolutely been sharing the pod. You've been anybody that comes on and says, "Does anybody know a good podcast?" You're tagging us and the midfield and others, and it's just really appreciated. So thank you very much for doing that.
Oh, not at all. I enjoy your podcast. I was listening on Mondays, so at work, and it really de-stressed me, and it was good and good for a laugh. So yeah, you guys helped me. So fair enough.
Have you got the necklace? Have you got the necklace with the marble on it?
I do. I'm wearing it. I don't take it off. Can you see it?
That is a piece of marble from Silverstone, Brian.
Wow.
Yeah, it's still bendy.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's quite chewy.
Right, on that note,
I was going to hold back of them. Look at the size of some of these chunks. Look.
Wow.
And
people won't be able to see this on the pod, but a bag of large marbles of rubber are being held up, which is fantastic.
And there's bits of green and red paint in them as well.
Might have even be enough 1.5 kilos. George could have won the race if he'd had a chance to go around.
Right? I should just slipped him in his pocket. It'd have been all right then.
Oh, fantastic. Helz, thank you so much again. We really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Box.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Helz. And one thing we talked about when we hung up, Helz was a little nervous to do this, and they were fantastic. And I would just say, if anybody is interested in coming on to do the 100 seconds or the quiz, this is a great example of somebody who was a little bit trepidatious and then went for it. So thanks, Helz. Awesome. And
yeah, it was brilliant. Well, before we do the intro,
yeah.
It was brilliant. And when you kind of get a certain view in your head of a persona from online, and then sometimes when you speak to them, it's not the same. That was just not the case here. Helz was as brilliant in the flesh or through the Zoom as on Thread. So fantastic to get to speak to Helz. And we've been spoiled for choice because we've had Helz, as we stand here now, Helz yesterday. And this morning, we've just come off recording somebody else, haven't we, Brian?
Yeah, for next week, we're going to have F1 Fantasy Hub, Rob. And Rob's been on a couple times, actually very early when we started. Well, I'll talk more about this next week, but very early when we started. And then did a fantasy episode with us and a few listeners from the Discord and Dirty Siders. And I would say bigger experts than we are on fantasy. And he joined us then, and he joined us again. And he's part of the fantasy formula, which is we've now had all three. We'd had all three already because Terry from Coffee Corner and Fantasy HQ Adam. And so having Rob on, which will air next week, is a treat. He is awesome as always, and their success and his success is amazing to watch, and couldn't cheer them on any harder. So it's a great episode. You're not going to want to miss it.
It is great, and what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to come up with a graphic for our quiz leaderboard, because with Helz registering on the leaderboard, Rob, I won't spoil it, but he will also be part of the leaderboard. I need a graphic now that we can put out on social because we've got more than 3 people on it. So
can you do one of those Indy 500? I know they do them at F1 tracks, but the Indy 500 is the most famous one where it's the poll of names.
Okay.
No, okay.
I'm not sure what you're referencing, but you send me an example, and we will come up with our leaderboard for this.
It's
and
not going to be that, and people will know my idea was crap.
I don't know what you're talking about, so I can't acknowledge it.
No worries.
Yeah. So please come on, please get in touch with us. Again, not to sound like we're begging too much, but as we've mentioned before, word of mouth is the biggest way that the dirty side spreads. All this social media is great, but people don't really click through from social media to listen to podcasts. So if you've got friends that like F1, tell them. Stop random people at the bus stop and tell them. Can't wait for next week.
Sounds great. Well, as we said, we've got another great guest lined up next week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful week and enjoy the off season.